This tutorial is for 3rd grade, Module 5, Lesson 15. In this lesson, we're going to look at fractions on the number line and how they relate to number bonds. The directions say label the fraction on the number line and make a number bond to show what makes a whole. My first fraction is 2/3. The denominator tells me that I've taken my whole that you see on the number line and divided it into 3 equal pieces. The numerator shows me that I need to put the point at the end of the second piece. So I start with 1/3, 2/3 would be at this point. So I have 2/3. The number bond is showing me that one whole consists of 2/3 and 1/3. And I'm going to shade in both of those sections on the number line to prove this. So you can see by the different colors that 2/3 brings us up to that 2/3 fraction, and that the remaining part of the one whole is 1/3. And that's why we broke the number bond down this way. One whole is made up of 2/3 and 1/3. I'm going to do the same thing with this next fraction. It is 3/4, and my one whole has been divided into 4 equal pieces according to the denominator. Now I have to find the end of the third piece. So I have 1 piece, 2 pieces, 3 pieces. So 3/4 would be at this point. And then my number bond will show me that one whole is made up of 3/4 and 1/4. And again, I'm going to shade those in to show you those 2 pieces of the number bond. So there I have the 3/4 in yellow and the 1/4 in blue that make the entire whole. The next section says to draw a number line and label the number line with 8 unit fractions. So I've drawn a line and now I need to divide it into 8 sections. So the first section, where I start at the 0, would be considered 0/8. The end represents one whole, which is the same thing as 8/8. Now I just have to put my 8 sections in between. So I'm going to divide this in half first, and then divide it into 4 pieces, and I can divide each of those in half, and that will give me my 8 pieces. So I have 1/8, 2/8, and there are my 8 pieces. And again, when we're counting the fractions on the number line, we're looking at the sections in between each of our marks. There should be 8 sections to show our eighths. The next question says, for his boat, James stretched out a rope with 5 equally spaced knots as shown. So you can see I have 5 knots on the rope. The first question says, starting at the first knot and ending at the last knot, how many equal parts are formed by the 5 knots? And then we're to label each unit fraction at the knot. So when they say how many equal parts, they're not talking about the knots, they're talking about the sections between the knots. So even though we have 5 knots, we only have 4 sections. So there are 4 sections or 4 equal parts formed by the knots. And since I've taken my whole rope and divided it into 4 equal sections, each section is considered 1/4. I would start by saying the beginning of the rope is 0/4. Then I have 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, and 4/4 that make up the whole rope. The next question says, what fraction of the rope is labeled at the third knot? Well, if I look at the third knot, that's this knot, and it's at the 2/4 mark, or 2/4 section of the rope. The last question says, what if the rope had 6 equally spaced knots along the same length? How many equal parts would there be on the rope? Well, if 5 knots gave us 4 equal parts, then 6 knots would give us 5 equal parts. So we need to make sure that when we're counting the fractions on a number line or on a rope in this case, that again, we're looking at the sections in between the marks, not counting every single mark to determine the fraction.